Momentum. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, they have it through the transfer portal. But I'm going to tell you about some specific players that you may not have thought were going to be really key to the 2025 season.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Brian Smith, in for Stephen Willis. Thank you for tuning in to everything Locked On Ole Miss. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere you get your podcasts each and every day. Truly appreciate you once again, and thank you to Stephen Willis for allowing me to come in and have some fun on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about all the key momentum-building pieces that the Rebels have, mostly from the portal, a little from the high school ranks. Got a Landon Duckworth update as well. But really, this is an overarching theme about how the portal not only is helping Ole Miss this year and for the future, but how Lane Kiffin and his staff have adjusted to. It's a nice little caveat because I don't think this would have worked out as well if that group, including Lane himself, hadn't learned from prior situations. So let's get started with that. Momentum. My take today is very simple. They've got roughly 30 players from the portal, but they've done so with due diligence, intelligence, and being balanced. I went through the Ole Miss transfer portal class just a little bit ago, and I said to myself, how many teams are this balanced with what they take and already have a really good roster? And then to add on to that, how many teams are going out with a bang? I'm going to give you my surprise portal player that you may think is somebody that's helpful, but he could be the key to whether or not Ole Miss makes a playoff run this year. That's my next point. And we're also going to talk about some guys that may be the difference in the secondary and overall with the pass defense that you may not have thought about. That again, Kiffin and his staff brought in from the portal at one point in time or another. They have brought in building blocks from everywhere in the country, FCS, G5, Power 4, to fit their needs. It is a very unique style that Lane Kiffin and his staff have in Ole Miss's last 2-3 years. But again, it's gotten better and better. Their momentum is really important. And if they get AJ Haulcy, I'm just going to throw this out. I checked right before I went to record this. The elite safety out of Houston, who I think is flat out the best remaining player in the portal. No decision yet. Miami, LSU, Ole Miss, that's the last I heard. I don't believe there's anything beyond that. Miami visit is a big one, but Haulcy had over 90 tackles and just is a dog. That's going to be an NFL player. So if Kiffin and company get him, you're talking about a loaded back end because you got Sage Ryan already back there. And we'll talk about another guy here in just a second. But the portal, it wouldn't just be momentum at that point. It would be through the roof. That's a whole nother level because it's possible AJ Haulcy ends up being a first-round draft pick. You can add a first-round pick in your secondary to go with what Lane Kiffin and his group have on offense each and every year. And I'll break that down a little bit as well. Then you're talking about a team that not only should make the playoff, they should win at least one game. But that's a conversation for another day. The main point here, my underdog, the guy that's under the radar, however you want to say it, Wyatt Williams. University of Louisiana Monroe, the safety, 6'2", 205. He had over 70 tackles last year. Matter of fact, he had over 90. He had a sack, 5 pressures per PFF, forced fumble, 3 interceptions. He's got size. Coverage grade is 78.9, but he hasn't gained, like from just search around on Ole Miss sites, really hasn't gained a ton of attention. That's okay. As long as he plays well on Saturdays this fall, I highly doubt that Rebels fans are going to care. More importantly, he's another piece. He's another bullet for Lane Kiffin and his entire coaching staff to use because we all know the SEC schedule is a gauntlet. And we all know that with teams like LSU on the schedule, you're going to need a lot of DBs. Again, if they get Haulcy to go with him, we'll talk about some corners here in just a second, and you get Sage Ryan, that's a pretty impressive group. You can mix and match. Somebody might go down to the box, play nickel. You might have somebody that's in the box more to blitz. They might change what they do coverage-wise in critical situations because they have veteran leaders with proven production, meaning your best ability is your availability. I say that constantly on every Locked On podcast I go to because coaches tell me that. So I'm going to go with what they say because they're the ones that are making the big bucks. But they still got to get Haulcy to make that a complete mission and complete overhaul. But for now, it's momentum. If they get Haulcy, it's through the roof. We'll see if Ole Miss can pull that off. Miami, LSU, to my knowledge, again, are the main competition. So what about why that makes me think that it's still possible that they could make a playoff run with him being like that dark horse that nobody talks about? Number one, he's been an underdog. He had played at University of Louisiana Monroe, but he balled out and had over 90 tackles. I don't care what level you played at. If you had over 90, you're knowing your assignments, you're understanding your keys on each and every play, and you're probably able to help other guys on the defense be in the best position prior to the snap. Understanding the formation, motion, shifts, all of it. Ole Miss could use some more of that. Their pass defense was not up to snuff last year. It wasn't. Adding veteran leadership at safety, that is momentum in the transfer portal. Adding it multiple times because you got Sage Ryan and Wydett Williams, again, that is momentum in the transfer portal. I didn't expect that, but I also didn't expect him to get Tavoy Fagan from Clemson, kid I know pretty well. That is a really athletic kid that's, quite honestly, a little more advanced at this stage technically than most kids. They get him from Clemson. They also still have got Ricky Fletcher. You've got Jalen Braxton. They got a lot of guys competing. I don't know how that's going to play out at corner, but I'd rather have more bullets in the gun than less. So if Ole Miss cures, or at least comes close, for lack of a better term, to curing its biggest ill in most seasons, that's given up some big passing plays, can they get to a point where they make a run in the playoff? I say yes. I was saying that anyway because I think they're going to be outscored some teams next year. But at some point, you got to play high-level defense. Momentum is winning in the transfer portal at your most critical spots. That's my final point on this. Ole Miss did it. They've even done it if they don't get AJ Haulcy. He's just an elite player and probably a first-round pick if all works out with him with the 40-yard dash and that stuff at the combine next year. But we'll see. I still think that Ole Miss has done a brilliant job. And hats off to Lane, all the people around for getting it done, because it would have been pretty easy to start relying, because they've gotten good high school kids. Let's not kid ourselves. They've done a really nice job with that. They could have taken it a little bit easier with the portal down the stretch, but they haven't. They haven't at all. When we come back, we're going to talk about the one guy that is really good, they got earlier in the portal, that I think will be the most important guy on the offensive side, and a little bit of a Landon Duckworth update. That is next here on Locked On Ole Miss. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you had to name one portal player that's going to be a major impact, and again, build momentum for Ole Miss, I think you're going to see it in every game this season. I'm going Patrick Kutas. Who you got? The transfer from Arkansas, and I say this in all sincerity. I love watching Lane Kiffin's offenses. It's usually the aerial attack that's fun, right? But when does Ole Miss, and really any place Lane has been, do its best work? When they can run the ball between the tackles, at least some, and especially in critical moments when everybody in the stadium knows it's a run, then his offense is all but undefensible. Patrick Kutas, a veteran player who's played in a power offense at Arkansas, he understands what that looks like. He's going to bring that mentality to Oxford. He's going to bring that girth. And he's a guy that understands the technique that's needed to go up against the best defensive lineman in college football in the Southeastern Conference. He's not going to get any acclaim. Patrick Kutas is not going to be a guy that everybody talks about. He's an offensive guard. But that was also a position of need. And again, Lane Kiffin, his offenses will start humming when they can pound it inside. Not jet sweeps, not the fancy stuff, not reverses, not quarterback naked boot, straight up power football, GT, running power, running ISO, running blast. Those plays, in any sense of the word, and I'm sure Lane's got his own language for some of that stuff. When they can do that, then the play action, then the run pass game, because you got another mobile quarterback, Simmons can run, all of it changes because you got to commit another defender to the box. Ole Miss will be able to throw more. So Patrick Kutas from Arkansas, the offensive guard, not a sexy pick. He will be the most important offensive guy they got from the portal in a way that you probably don't think about unless you really sit back and look at the whole dynamic. Now, in similar fashion, just for fun, which player or players, I guess if you want to answer this on Locked On Ole Miss's YouTube page, you can fire away. What offensive player will be the biggest impact recruit? This is a keep it simple, stupid answer. Caleb Cunningham. In some capacity, at some point this year, I don't know how quick it'll be. It's not like Ole Miss is struggling at receiver, but Caleb Cunningham is going to break into the lineup, at least from a rotational standpoint. I imagine he'll have a couple of touchdowns, and he'll have a few plays that Ole Miss fans love. Unique football player. The speed, the incredible timing when he jumps to get the football. There's something innate about the way he goes up for it. Caleb's really talented. But I can't answer the following, nor can even Caleb. How quickly will he assimilate to the playbook in real time? Meaning, when things really start happening and coverages change after the snap, does he know how to make adjustments? All those little things. That's why we play the games. If Caleb has that ability, though, to learn and understand how things relate to the offense, especially the RPO stuff, they'll find a way to get him the ball on some screens, short unders, and just basic patterns. Because once he gets the football, sometimes the fireworks start then. Caleb Cunningham is a big-time player. Now, on the other side of the ball, we can talk about it in a lot of different ways, but I don't think that it's all that difficult there either. Jacoby Hobson is my guy. Versatile linebackers. You can pick somebody else, but a guy that can blitz, play coverage, or play the run, and he's definitely going to be a special teams guy. As a freshman, will be a special player for Ole Miss. It may not be all season, and defensive linebacker in today's world is hard. Very, very hard because of the RPO game. I've had coaches literally tell me that, yes, the linebacker needs to be in two places at once, and I'm not exaggerating because of the quarterback being a run threat. That's a problem, obviously. But however he gets coached up, they're going to find at least a couple of ways beyond special teams for him to play. Too good a player, too athletic. And again, the versatility with his size, he's about 6'1", 6'2", 210, somewhere around there. He should be able by the middle of the season to have a special package or do something. I don't know what it is, And if nothing else, he's going to be a good special teams guy, but he's my pick on defense. It's harder to pick defensive guys with Ole Miss because they've recruited better there. It used to be a little bit easier. And then Cunningham, again, that's not rocket science. As for the overall impact, it's amazing to me how much Ole Miss has changed their roster and still kept their identity. It's a really weird combination, but Lane Kiffin figures it out. Overall, I think they have built the momentum, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. Now to some basic questions and have some fun with how they built their roster in the portal. Just my own takes. And again, if you want to make a comment on the YouTube page for Locked On Ole Miss, have at it. Has Ole Miss met all their needs after spring ball? No, they have not, but they're still working. Have they done well so far is probably the better question. And the answer is absolutely. We've talked about like Kudus. You got Deshaun Womack, a defensive end from LSU's experience, got some production. They got Sage Ryan from LSU. They got so many guys. I'm just really impressed with it. They just want to have more. The answer is almost always more, but that's a basic life question. I think that they're very close. If they got Haulcy to being about as balanced and impactful overall of any team in the country, and it might be the best portal class, period. So that's very important. How good is the wide receiver situation, especially with Caleb coming in to Ole Miss? This one, I had to research a little bit. I know Ole Miss is rostered somewhat, but I was looking at it. I know Caden Lee well. He might be, I'll project him one of the top 5 receivers in total receptions this year in the SEC. I'm pretty confident with that. But I don't know who's going to be the main guy because I think they're going to change it up. Dribbling, for instance, very talented. Harrison Wallace is a guy I think could be that guy, but he had his moments last year at Penn State. He disappeared some too. We'll see. Caleb Odom, maybe. He didn't play much, if at all, last year at Bama, but he's super talented. I've seen him play multiple times. Really talented football player. So I like the makeup of the room. They got some different body types, and they even got like Winston Watkins, we call him Winnie, coming in as well. They should be really good there. And again, it's a nice mix. Transfer portal and high school, Ole Miss does a great job. My only question, and this is an open-ended one, and I don't ask this on my sheet in general. This is just spur of the moment here. How do y'all feel about the Ole Miss tight end room? Good, bad, indifferent? I don't remember Daquan Wright. It's one thing for me to pull up the stats, and I just said, you know what? Let's not do that. And now I'm just coming back to it. I'm just going to ask it this way. Do you feel good about the Ole Miss tight end room, and do you think they're better at the blocking aspect or catching it? Just want to throw that out there. Next, biggest impact portal additions. Talked about that, but is there anything else that you think they needed to make an impact that they didn't? I would say no, now that they got not one but 2 safeties. And I would also say, I don't know if it's hard to say which one, because with Kiffin's play calling, this is difficult. He's so good at it. I'll guess Stribling. It's hard. Which guy on offense? Because again, he distributes the ball so darn good. It's really, really hard. That's a good problem to have, though. Stribling's size makes it interesting. It makes it interesting. 6'2", 200 pounds, give or take. It's a kid that comes in from Washington State. He's probably pretty hungry. You know what I mean? Or not what? Washington State versus Oklahoma State. He's probably pretty hungry. They were terrible. I don't know. That's really interesting. Is he going to be the guy that they use in the red zone? He could be the superstar guy down there because they need a big body guy. But whatever. The case, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is still the same. He had over 800 yards last year and 6 scores. Maybe Stribling is the guy that is the most impactful on offense from the portal that everybody talks about. That's another way to put that. We'll see. Here's a question that I'm curious what everybody thinks. I don't have much of an opinion on. I didn't grow up in Mississippi. So this is from an outsider's perspective. I always watch the Egg Bowl, and I've got a little story too. But do you think that Ole Miss is still separating from Mississippi State based on the transfer portal. Now, Mississippi State's got some good players. They just got the tackle for Virginia. But even though they've improved their roster, has Ole Miss elevated theirs? And I don't know the answer to this, so I don't follow Mississippi State close enough, to a point where they're still improving the gap between the Rebels and the Bulldogs. Debatable. I only follow Mississippi State a little bit, but they lost the quarterback to LSU. He went to be the backup. That hurts. I mean, that's got to be a gut punch for Mississippi State fans. And on top of it, they've gotten a few good portal guys, but do you still feel good enough if you're a Mississippi State fan to think we're going to win a few SEC games this year? I need to see it because they were not really a Power 4 team last year. They were garbage, but it is what it is. When we come back, I'm going to have a little story. I'm going to talk about a couple of different other players in the portal, but that is next here on Locked on Ole Miss. Just want to share an Egg Bowl story I had that is still funny to me to this day. This is from 20 years ago. But a family friend of mine had me over for Thanksgiving dinner one year, and I said, we got to watch the Egg Bowl. And I got this look, and it's not even definable. His wife is like, the what? I said, the Egg Bowl. And she knew we were going to watch football of some kind. And I said, Ole Miss is playing against Mississippi State. And she once again looked at me like I was insane. Now, not everybody follows college football like I do. I get it. Here's the funny part, though. Next year, I went over for dinner again. And she asked me about the Egg Bowl. She remembered it. It was pretty funny. Like, are we watching the Egg Bowl tonight? I'm like, oh, yeah, we're watching the Egg Bowl. So it's amazing how, like I lived in Indiana at that time, even in the Midwest, Ole Miss and Mississippi State are impacting what people do. And it's probably not considered that way because Mississippi is not the most populated state. I get you when you talk about that, but it does have an impact around America. And that game, you'd be amazed at how many people really find that game fascinating and the rivalry just intriguing because there's so much dislike for one another. And oftentimes the games are just really competitive. The Egg Bowl is really cool, and I'll always watch it, even if I'm at a friend's house. Now, back to a few more questions before we wrap up the show. How can Lane Kiffin, how should I put this, make Ole Miss not just a good team pretty much every year, but an upper echelon team every season? Barring, like injury. Take injury out of the equation because that's something you can't do anything about. Quarterback breaks his ankle, you're in trouble. It is what it is. So how can they do that from a long-term perspective? Now, I've talked about, even today, how they use the portal better in terms of being strategic and also increasing the high school talent. Well, it's just more of that, in my opinion. You got to reduce the number of portal guys by bringing in even more, not high school players, that's not the key, elite high school players. There is no shortcut here, especially in the trenches. Go look at the teams that finish in the top 5 of the SEC. How many of them match the top 5 to 7 teams in the SEC recruiting each year? They almost mirror one another every year. There are a few exceptions. LSU will fall off one year, A&M, whatever. I get it. But by and large, the same schools who win in the trenches out of the high school ranks go the furthest, make it to Atlanta and or the college football playoff. Ole Miss has started to do that a little bit, but I'm talking about getting elite, especially the elite offensive tackles. They're the rarest. Those guys go to a very select number of schools or stay in state. It's one or the other. Ole Miss, they have a chance. It's a good lineman state, but they need to keep more at home. And again, there's no shortcut. Ole Miss has to go into other schools' backyards and pluck somebody out of Georgia, out of Texas, out of Oklahoma, out of Ohio, whatever. Every now and then, even if every second or third year you go get an elite offensive tackle, that's a future NFL player like Tunsil, somebody like that from back in the day, it changes your program. Secondarily, they've started to do this, and I've talked about this quite a bit. The defensive linemen, they have started to keep it home. Now they just got to continue to do it. If you can keep the top D lineman in your state home like 3 years in a row, when you've got a lot of depth, that is changing what you do. Now, how do I feel about Ole Miss's 2026 recruiting class so far? I'll end the show right here. This is a unique perspective, but take it for what it's worth. It's a two-part answer. Number one, they got a good group so far. I like the Reese Wise kid. I like the group overall. The slot receiver from California is really good. There's nobody I don't like. They just don't have a whole lot of players. And again, I was just talking about, you got to start getting more elite offensive tackles out of the high school ranks. Not good, elite. That is the difference for long-term sustainability. I know that's easier said than done. But again, that's Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, etc. Go look at the guys that they have started the last few years, especially this past year, at offensive tackle. They're almost exclusively 4- and 5-star recruits that were national guys that had, many of them, a plethora of offers before their junior year of high school even started. Keep in mind, offensive line is probably the hardest position to grade early on because of development. They were so advanced, it was kind of obvious. If Ole Miss, again, can just get one or two more of those guys on their roster over like a 4-year period, it changes your program. To me, that's the biggest difference between Ole Miss being good like 2 out of 3 years competing for the playoff and pretty much being predicted to go into the playoff every year. Think about the quarterbacks that Ole Miss gets. They got more time to throw. You know the kind of guys they're bringing in. Those are some dudes. So, and I did forget Landon Duckworth real quick. He set a visit to Auburn. I don't know what's going on with Auburn's recruitment because they're after Travis Burgess, a kid from Georgia, but he's been trending a little bit towards North Carolina. The Duckworth recruitment is intriguing. He was committed to South Carolina at one point. He's still going to take an OB. Florida State's a wild card. I don't think he'll go there, but they're after him hard. You got Auburn, the in-state school, because he's from Jackson, Alabama, in the southern part of the state. You got Ole Miss. And the other wild card, the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't think he'll go there, but Georgia should always be considered a recruiting threat. Kirby's an elite recruiter, no doubt about it. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to give me a chance to share my knowledge about Ole Miss and helping Stephen while he's out. We will see you all again soon. Take care.